Incredible revelation. How a humble mechanic unknowingly helped his lost love, a millionaire woman. The sun rose over Maplewood, casting a warm glow on Jake's small garage. The familiar scent of motor oil filled the air, instilling a sense of belonging that he cherished. As the doors swung open, the clinking of tools gathered like an orchestra warming up, an unrelenting reminder that he was anchored in this hard-earned life. Jake, a 30-year-old mechanic, had inherited his father's legacy, a sanctuary of grease stains that told tales of exhaustive labor and unwavering loyalty. Yet a storm brewed inside him as the weight of love and life pressed against his heart. He never expected his former high school sweetheart to return, not as a playful girl, but as a polished millionaire, Samantha. His mind raced with memories of youthful laughter, shared dreams, and the warmth of roots that once intertwined deeply. Could he really reconnect with someone from his past who had soared into the high-flying world of real estate, trading simplicity for opulence? As he riveted bolts on a classic Mustang, the same car Samantha once adored, he felt emotional turmoil rise like steam from the engine. Each day consumed by restoration was a step toward rekindling their bond, but also a confrontation with the jarring life choices that lay between them. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Jake's thoughts zigzagged with each turn of the wrench. His humble garage became a stage filled with conflicting emotions. Excitement at the thought of rekindled love battled with the haunting sense of inadequacy. Could a mechanic from Maplewood ever fit in Samantha's lavish world? The whispers of her wealthy acquaintances slithered into his thoughts, igniting a fire of self-doubt. They didn't look at him as an equal. They assessed him through the lens of status and summed him up as just a mechanic. The battle of longing tinged with anguish raged within him. He grappled with his principles and the dawning fear of rejection. What would he say if Samantha's family had long buried secrets that shackled them to a scandal threatening their delicate chance for love? Each moment spent in Samantha's presence felt like walking a tightrope above an abyss, fraught with danger. With each rekindled gaze edged with familiarity, there was an invisible chasm. Their worlds felt so far apart, yet he kept leaning toward her. Jake's expression hardened as confrontation loomed just around the corner, enough to awaken buried memories and losses. In that fragile intertwining of past and future, Jake faced an unbearable truth. Could he nurture this connection without losing himself in the process? All pieces clicked into place, but there lay an insurmountable wall, built from social class and family histories. Holding his breath, he waited for the next twist in this tale that could unravel or realign their lives forever. A single choice hung in the air like the ominous sound of a wrench clattering to the floor, waiting to tip the scales. The engine purred to life, cutting through the cacophony of thoughts crashing in Jake's mind. A sense of accomplishment washed over him, but the fog of uncertainties still loomed large. He wiped his hands on a rag and stared through the half-open garage door, where a few glossy cars sped past, each a symbol of a life he felt increasingly alien to. The sun painted the asphalt gold, but inside, an unsettling darkness seeped through. He knew he was at a precipice. The next move could redefine everything. Jake's heart raced as memories of Samantha surged forward. Her laughter, the way her eyes lit up when they talked about their dreams. Those vibrations transformed into a heavy weight. The thought of her success rendered him conscious of his own path, or lack thereof. While she navigated the intricate world of luxury and stature, he seemed perpetually anchored to the grease-stained floor of his garage, each day resembling the last. But what if he could shift that perception? What if, instead of measuring himself against the wealth of others, he could reframe his identity by embracing the value of his craft? The spark of a revelation flickered. Perhaps his skills as a mechanic were not a limitation, but a feature of himself that thrived on authenticity. He had found beauty in rebuilding engines, and as he contemplated the Mustang he was restoring, inspiration surged within him. If only he could grasp the potential that lay within this greasy sanctuary. Determined not to fret his growing feelings for Samantha with insecurities, Jake realized he needed to cast aside the notion that relationships were built on superficial measures. His work was art. The satisfaction of turning a rusted, forgotten vehicle into something vibrant and powerful mirrored his desire to reinvigorate his own spirit. He imagined telling Samantha how he viewed life through these lenses, the transformation of the mundane into masterpieces. With each bolt tightened, he envisioned bridging the distance between them with raw honesty. The juxtaposition of their lives presented an acute anxiety. He had to confront Samantha, yet fears of judgment clawed at him. What if she saw him simply as a product of Maplewood, incapable of existing in her world? The more he contemplated, the more Jake recognized that persistence in the face of rejection was essential for growth. It was a reflection of his character, the values inherited from his father. This legacy demanded resilience and courage, even when the odds felt stacked against him. As the day waned into dusk, Jake made a choice. His next interaction with Samantha wouldn't be shrouded in doubt or shame. He would confront himself as much as he would confront her, voicing his passion for his work, for the beauty of craft in a world obsessed with glamour. He could no longer be just a mechanic. He was a passionate creator, a builder, not only of vehicles, but of relationships. The decision settled into his thoughts, a burgeon in strength he hadn't felt in a long time. The echo of the wrench against the metal lingered in his psyche, a rhythmic reminder that he was forging ahead. Tomorrow he would reach out to her, not seeking restoration of the past, but an invitation to build something new. But as he contemplated the forthcoming confrontation and took a deep breath, uncertainty lingered. How would she respond to his newfound conviction? Jake stepped outside into the evening, adrenaline coursing through his veins. It was time to act, to push beyond the boundaries he had quietly adhered to for so long. But as he warmed to the idea, he felt a slight chill. A voice whispered at the back of his mind, warning him of the risk. Would Samantha embrace the mechanic, or would she be dismayed by the life he had built and chose for himself? The sunset framed his uncertainty, a perfect backdrop to the crossroads he stood at, both terrified and exhilarated. With a surge of determination, Jake whispered to himself, "Tomorrow is the day I change everything." As shadows fell across the street, he knew precisely the moment had come to step into the light or retreat into the familiar shadows of fear. Would he take the plunge? With the stakes so high, he could feel destiny pressing upon his chest, urging him into the fray. As dawn broke, Jake awoke to a sky streaked with shades of pink and orange, a vibrant tapestry reflecting the turmoil brewing inside him. The light crept through the dingy garage windows, illuminating the Mustang that had become more than just a project. It symbolized his journey of self-discovery. Every curve and contour reminded him of the possibilities waiting to be embraced. He needed to breathe life into this day, confront whatever fear lurked in the corners of his mind, challenge the shadows that had long confined him. He headed straight for the tools, each one feeling heavier than the last as he considered the weight of his intentions. Today was not only about sharing his truth with Samantha, but also about reaffirming that truth to himself. Jake tightened his grip around the wrench, the cold metal grounding him, sparking resolve. He could do this.
With every click and clink of metal, Jake executed tasks with newfound precision, visualizing the interaction with Samantha. Unlike the repeated failures that stained his past attempts at connection, he envisioned vulnerability as strength, not a weakness. The risk of rejection would be an opportunity, and if they could break through the facade they both wore,
perhaps a new collaboration could emerge from their contrasting worlds. While he worked, the radio crackled to life, filling the garage with music that echoed the sentiments of his heart. There was something liberating about the sound, covering the noise of his insecurities. The lyrics spoke to his yearning for connection, igniting a fire within as they unraveled the knots that had held him back. Jake's spirit lifted, and he began to imagine their conversations mixing dreams with the grit that life often demanded. But as the reflections teased him, he stared out the garage door, listening to the world outside. The thrill of the cars racing by seemed to spark a restlessness, as if they were mocking his solitary existence. Each rev of an engine became a reminder of the distance, the gap between the vibrant lives of others and the grease-stained reality he inhabited. Would Samantha even be able to see the beauty in the life he had shaped? Questions flooded his mind, pushing him to confront the core of his doubt. Was he trying to fit into a life that would forever feel foreign? Or was he about to carve out a path where the two worlds could coexist? The idea of showing her this world, his world, felt monumental. Would she admire the grit and tenacity of his approach, or would it reinforce her perspective of a man defined by his modest beginnings? Jake decided to initiate the conversation on neutral ground. A casual meetup at the local diner, their old stomping grounds, offered an ideal opportunity to share stories woven with spirit and authenticity. It was there, amidst the chatter and clinking of cutlery, he could speak from the heart. As he concluded the final touches on the Mustang, a shift overtook him. This wasn't merely a car, it was a vessel of his transformation, a mirror reflecting not just his capabilities, but also his aspirations. He had elevated his craft to something worthy of admiration. If he could revive an old engine, why couldn't he revive his connection with Samantha? But then a sudden pang of uncertainty surged through him. Was he truly prepared to face whatever came next? He pictured Samantha, her laughter like sunlight piercing through his insecurities, juxtaposed against a backdrop of glittering social circles he felt ill-equipped to enter. Just then, his phone buzzed, jarring him back to the present. An unrecognizable number flashed on the screen, and for a moment the uncertainty threatened to swallow him whole. What if it was bad news, or a reminder of everything he feared? Taking a deep breath, he hit answer, with shaking hands, feeling the thrill of potential surging within him, even amid the uncertainty. Would it be a surprise that could change everything once again? He listened intently, heart racing, as a familiar voice reached through the tension, cracking open the door he thought would remain shut. The choice was now more evident than ever. He was caught in a precipice. Would he dive into the fray with the truth he had uncovered about himself, or linger in trepidation, afraid of the power a single moment could yield? Jake held his breath as the voice on the other end of the line enveloped him in warmth and familiarity. It was Samantha. "Jake, I didn't expect to hear from you," she began, the surprise evident even through the phone. Her tone was casual yet laced with a crack of excitement. Every word breathed life into the moment, pulling Jake back to a past where laughter shared over pancakes felt like a different lifetime. A flood of memories pricked at the corners of his mind, reigniting the flicker of hope that had been hiding beneath layers of self-doubt. Here was the opportunity he had long awaited. "Yeah, it's been a while," he managed, his voice steadier than he felt. The moment stretched, laden with possibilities, as he wondered how to navigate their discussion. He was acutely aware of the gulf that separated them, the divide that had once seemed insurmountable. Today, that divide felt like a challenge waiting to be overcome. "I've been thinking a lot, about us," she continued, her words tumbling out with the ease of someone disarmed by nostalgia.
Each syllable seemed to pull Jake closer, as if gravity had shifted. Their conversation then shifted to the Mustang. With deliberate enthusiasm, he told her about the project, emphasizing its significance in a way that laid bare his passion. "It's not just a car, Sam. It's a rebirth of sorts, a way to show I can rebuild and reclaim what's important to me." He felt the sincerity prick at his consciousness, noticing the vulnerability in sharing his ambition and self-discovery. Samantha's response was a blend of admiration and caution. "I'd love to see it. Maybe we could meet at the diner?" This invitation hung in the air, a solid breakthrough in an otherwise foggy path. Yet along with the excitement rose a swell of anxiety. Would she see the transformation he had undergone, or would she remain trapped in the past, associating him with the boy who once struggled for acceptance? As their call wound down, the nervous energy ignited something in him. What had started as a simple catch-up had evolved into an invitation for a deeper connection, one that danced on the edge of fear and hope. He concluded the call, phone still warm against his ear, feeling emboldened yet uncertain. His heart thrummed with a potent mix of anticipation and trepidation, marrying vulnerability with strength. The hour was urgent, ticking down to their meeting at the diner. Every moment leading closer to it forced Jake to confront the deeper layers of his self-worth. Would he protect the authenticity he had fought hard to unravel, or would he shrink back into shadows familiar to him? Jake felt a moment of clarity wash over him. He would approach this face-to-face interaction as he had approached the restoration of the Mustang, by stripping away the layers until the core was.
He saw it clearly. The meeting would not just be an exchange of pleasantries about jobs and life. It would be the unveiling of his truth. He spent the next moments preparing, not just physically, but mentally. Reflecting on the growing gaps between personal growth and societal perception, he grappled with his definition of success. As he journeyed inward, seeking reassurance within, the fear began to morph into conviction. As he slid behind the wheel of his Mustang one final time before their reunion, he caught a glimpse of his reflection in the rearview mirror. The man staring back challenged his narrative of being just a product of circumstance. There was resilience there, a realization that he was not merely a catalog of his failures. He would not tarnish his newfound armor with doubt today. Instead, he would embrace the uncertainties with open arms. The engine roared to life, mirroring his pulse racing in tandem. Each rev felt like affirmation, propelling him forward. Would he truly reveal the music of his soul, or would he remain shackled to the expectations of a life crafted by others? In that moment of ignition, as he shifted into gear, he felt the weight of potential shift beneath him. The moment was here, and the stakes were climbing higher. As he pulled out of the garage and onto the open road, another thought washed over him, its simplicity arresting. Could this move transform not just their relationship, but reshape both their futures entirely? The question nagged in him as the diner came into view, an emblem of what was about to erupt from the pending encounter. He imagined their eyes meeting across the coffee-stained booth, and for the first time a thought gripped him. Would he be able to confront not just her gaze, but also the truth of who he was becoming? Jake parked the Mustang outside the diner, his heart pounding with a mixture of excitement and apprehension. He could feel the weight of the moment pressing in from all sides, a reminder that this wasn't just an outing with an old friend. It was a chance to redefine his path. The diner, with its flickering neon sign, stood as a beacon of the life he once knew. But the allure of the past wasn't what he craved anymore. It was more than nostalgia. It was about potential, his potential. As he stepped inside, the warmth of the room enveloped him, mingling with the aroma of coffee and grilled sandwiches. He spotted Samantha at a booth, a familiar figure yet shrouded in the newness of the moment. Her presence ignited a whirlpool of emotions. How would she see him? Would she recognize the change that had taken place beneath the surface?
"Hey, Jake," she greeted, her smile lighting up her features. And for an instant, it felt as though time itself had folded back to an easier day. But that fleeting moment of comfort was dashed by a sudden state of hyper-awareness. He was here too.
Demonstrate who he had become, not to retreat into the shadows beneath her gaze. "Hey, Sam." As he slid into the booth, he could feel the balance shifting toward vulnerability. The awkwardness of small talk hovered unnecessarily between them. He could either embrace it or let it suffocate him. "Thanks for meeting me." "Of course," she replied, her eyes searching his, curious. Jake took a breath, diving straight into the murky waters of self-truth. "I've really been working on myself these past few months." He paused, gauging her reaction. "I've learned a lot about what I want in life, not just with the Mustang, but with everything." "What do you want then?" Her question punctured the tension, widening the gap between knowing and being known. He leaned forward, driven by the need to articulate his journey. "I want to do more than just exist, Sam. I want to build, to create, and not just cars. I want to create connections, to truly engage with people. I've been rebuilding the Mustang like I'm trying to rebuild my life. This car represents something more. It symbolizes the restoration of my own identity." Samantha's curiosity deepened, and there was a spark in her eyes as he continued. "I realized that I had buried parts of myself because I was afraid of what they would reveal. But now I'm committed to embracing all of me, imperfections included." A soft smile broke through the previous tension as she nodded. "I see that, Jake. It's inspiring." But even her approval couldn't quite quell the anxiety creeping back in. Would she see him as someone more than a mechanic with a painful past? The table between them felt like a declaration of what separated them: status, expectations, history. "How about you? How's life treating you?" he asked, attempting to shift focus, though the question felt charged. Samantha hesitated, an imperceptible ripple of vulnerability crossing her face. "I've been managing a company since my dad stepped back. It's challenging, and sometimes I feel like I'm just floating through it all. I wonder if I'm living my truth or just fulfilling his expectations." Jake's stomach twisted as her confession mirrored his own struggles. In that moment of sharing, he realized they were both in a similar fight, seeking validation, yearning for autonomy. "The pressure of expectation can be suffocating," he reflected. "We've both fought to carve out our identities in different ways." She nodded slowly, a look of contemplation deepening her expression. "Reading between the lines, it's easy to see the similarities in our journeys. We're both trying to find where we fit in the world we've inherited." That realization fueled Jake's determination. This encounter was not just about rekindling an old flame or revealing their past selves. It was an opportunity to transform the narrative they had each been bound by. But there was a question lingering within him. Would they allow their respective transformations to intertwine? As their conversation continued, Jake considered the undeniable truth: hardship cultivating resilience. Yet a darker thought: were they ready to face the complexity that came with such revelations? Just as he began to feel grounded, a sharp uncertainty pulled at him. Was vulnerability a path toward mutual growth, or simply a spiral that could drag them back to familiarity and fear? As they shared laughter and deeper stories, he could feel the stakes rising. Each laugh packed heavy layers of connections laced with uncertainty. Yet, in the pit of his stomach, he knew the real question lay ahead. Could they bridge the gap between their pasts and forge a future together without losing the authenticity they now fought for? And with that thought pulsing in his mind, he weighed the depth of what his truth might cost. Jake sipped his coffee, the warmth leaking into his fingertips, yet the chill of uncertainty hung around his shoulders. The small diner seemed to shrink with each passing moment, pressing closer as his thoughts spiraled. He watched Samantha, her laughter, her light. But what would she see in him? The mechanic with a newfound commitment to transformation, or the man still entwined with the remains of his past? Every laugh shared felt like a balancing act. One side swayed toward a burgeoning connection, but the other threatened to tip into old habits. "You mentioned pressure," he said, pushing the edge of vulnerability. Do you ever feel it holds you back?" Samantha looked down, tracing a pattern on the table with her finger. "All the time. Managing my dad's company, I keep worrying, am I making decisions for me, or am I just trying to fill a role?" That sentiment resonated with him. He understood the pulse beneath her words, the desire to act on one's own accord versus following a script written by someone else's expectations. In that duality, he glimpsed a reflection of his own battle. They were sculptors, each carving their identities from the stone of inherited tradition and imposed ambitions. "What if we found our truth together?" Jake proposed tentatively, the words tasting strange yet empowering on his tongue. "Maybe we could help each other." He watched her eyes flicker with something, possibility, perhaps. "Are you suggesting we team up?" The corners of her mouth turned up, though her brow creased in skepticism. "I mean, why not? It's not about fixing each other, but supporting the journey." His heart quickened. He wasn't just speaking for her, he felt the weight of his own truth surfacing. "This car I've been working on, it's more than just a project. She needs me to be patient, to listen to every creak and rumble. Our lives are just like that. We need to listen to ourselves." The sincerity in his voice seemed to fracture the air between them, sparking an intimate understanding that hadn't existed moments before. She regarded him with newfound seriousness, her presence now solid, no longer a fleeting nostalgia. "Do you think we can pull this off?" she questioned, the challenge dancing in her voice. "Why not start with our own journeys? I could help you streamline your company, and in return, you could mentor me on how to really engage with people, into not just existing in their lives, but really being present." His words hung heavily, weighted with truth, anticipation, and the undeniable tension of what lay beneath. Samantha seemed to ponder deeply. The initial spark of her laughter faded into thoughtful silence, and Jake feared the moment might slip like water through his fingers. Would fear of stepping into the unknown override the possibility of exploration? "What if one of us makes a mistake?" she finally asked, the words lightly laced with vulnerability. "Then we learn," he replied. "We adapt, just like in rebuilding this car. Each setback teaches more than any victory ever could, right?" Her eyes locked with his, and for the first time, he saw more than just interest. He saw the potential for a partnership, a shared journey of growth that could not only help him, but support her as well. Yet doubt lingered, pestering him like a persistent shadow. Beyond these moments, would they flounder at the edges of their respective realities? He could feel threads of apprehension stitching into the fabric of excitement. "Are we both ready for that level of commitment?" she asked softly, the challenge unmistakable. "Yes," he replied, resolute. "But we need to set clear boundaries. No falling back into old patterns. We'll support each other without losing ourselves." The thought reverberated through him, an affirmation of identity amidst exploration. But as their conversation flowed on, the weight of uncertainty returned. What if they forgot the rules? What if fear overpowered ambition? As the laughter softened into another layer of understanding, he felt invigorated, yet terrified. The stakes were rising. A call to action had been issued, but underscored by risks that made his heart race. Now, with a deeper connection formed, they had a shared mission ahead of them: align their lives without losing sight of their own paths and truths. Could they truly merge and grow without losing their individuality? Jake leaned back, weighing the possibilities, a question lingering on his mind. Were they ready to face everything this journey may demand? Or would they find themselves stumbling over the very barriers they hoped to dismantle together? The next morning, clarity pierced through Jake's residual uncertainties like the sun breaking through a morning mist. The diner, once a shrine to trepidation, transformed into a crucible of opportunity. He slipped into the familiar routine of coffee and contemplation, envisioning the day ahead. He had decided that reaching out to Samantha was not merely about professional assistance. It was about self-discovery. She wasn't just a woman navigating familial expectations. She was a beacon illuminating paths he had only brushed against in his mind. The car in his workshop beckoned him, just as much, representing both a tangible skill and a metaphor for his own life, an intersection of mechanics and meaning awaiting his touch. He pulled out his phone, hesitating for a heartbeat before typing a message to Samantha. "How about we start our first meeting today? Let's explore what our journeys might look like together." He hit send, the weight of commitment settling comfortably within him. The reply was instant. "Sounds good. I have this idea for a small project we can work on together. Some changes at the office that could really use your perspective." Anticipation bubbled within him. Her enthusiasm sparked an internal fire, a cocktail of excitement and nerves. What contributions could he, a mechanic, possibly make in the structured world she inhabited? His thoughts drifted back to her worries. Was she capable? Could he truly support her without succumbing to the undertow of his insecurities? As they met just an hour later, the bustling office environment pulsed alive around them. But instead of feeling out of place, Jake felt empowered standing alongside Samantha. She animatedly outlined the issues: a team entrenched in habits, a disconnect between management and employees. It mirrored a problem he often encountered in his workshop: how to motivate people to embrace change, to find joy in the transition. "First," he said, his voice steady even as his heart raced, "you need to listen. The mechanics of this office culture are just as complex as my car repairs. You have to understand where it creaks before you can tighten any bolts." Samantha nodded vigorously, her eyes brightening. "Yes, I've been so focused on operational fixes that I've neglected the team's input. That makes so much sense." Their synergy clicked, like gears aligning perfectly in a finely tuned machine. They spent hours brainstorming strategies, blending Jake's practical insights with Samantha's business acumen. The moments they shared began to chip away at the distance created by apprehension, transforming it into a comfortable camaraderie that seemed to pulse with potential. Midway through the session, Jake paused, consumed by a thought that whispered insistently from the recess of his mind. "What about you? What do you really want from all this?" Her face clouded momentarily, shadows of vulnerability flickering across her features. "Honestly, I want to feel like I deserve to be in control of my own life. It's like I'm always measuring against the legacy my dad built. I worry I'm just trying to live up to expectations." A moment of raw honesty hung between them, sharp and illuminating. Jake recognized the weight of that confession. There were times when he felt similarly suffocated by the legacy of hardship, the expectation to remain the same person he always had been. Suddenly, the walls he had built around his own emotions began to feel porous. "Samantha," he said, conviction filtering through his words, "it's okay to redefine what success means to you. I'm learning that it's not about fixing what's broken, but celebrating every step of the journey, no matter how small." Her lips curled into a soft smile, as if he had unlocked a door she had nearly forgotten existed. But then, as they dove back into work, a flicker of doubt returned. How could they navigate this complex landscape without slipping into old patterns, without letting their past choices cloud their shared future? And would the weight of outside expectations ultimately drown out their ambitious collaboration? As the day wore on, Jake felt the stakes rising again, the tension coiling tighter around their budding partnership. Together, they stood on the cusp of something significant, yet the specter of fear loomed over the horizon, a reminder that the greater the ambition, the harder the confrontation with unexpected challenges. Was he ready to confront the judgments of others as well as his own self-doubt? They had started to build something new, both for Samantha's company and their lives. But could they sustain momentum, or would they eventually crash into the walls of their pasts? The question pulsed in Jake's mind as he met Samantha's gaze once more, each searching for reassurance in the depths of the other's resolve.
As days turned into weeks, their meetings became a sacred space where ideas collided and flourished. Jake was surprised by how much they both seemed to draw out of each other. He had always been the type to work with his hands, guiding engines back to life. Yet now he found himself breathing life into the intentions of a whole team. Yet, creeping in and out of his thoughts was the nagging sensation that he was merely playing with fire. The fear of inadequacy thrummed beneath the surface. Could a simple mechanic really have a lasting impact in a world governed by suits and boardroom strategies? During one of their sessions, they were mapping out a plan for a team-building workshop aimed at re-engaging employees who seemed disengaged. The office walls, still and silent, became witness to the extensive discussions, charting systems of communication and navigating the treacherous waters of team dynamics. With each idea, Jake felt a rising surge of confidence creeping up, like the slow spool of a well-oiled engine. Samantha paused, her pen hovering above the whiteboard. "You know, your perspective on mechanics is an excellent metaphor. Companies are like machines. They need lubrication, adjustments, and sometimes a complete overhaul to really operate optimally," she said, her voice revealing an excited vitality. Jake chuckled, a smile creeping onto his face. "Sure, but at the end of the day, what happens if a part can't be fixed?" he countered, his heart tightening at the all-too-familiar notion of irreparability. "The beauty of machines and people is that nothing is truly beyond repair," she insisted, her eyes sparkling with conviction. "Sometimes it's just about recognizing the right resources, or in your case, the right tools. Your insights are transforming my approach, Jake." That recognition jolted something in him. For months, he had felt invisible, locked in the confines of his career. Samantha's words were like a battering ram against the door he had fortified over the years. Emboldened by his newfound sense of value, Jake leaned back in his chair. "Maybe I can help more
"Than I thought," he said cautiously, processing the import of his own words. As he spoke, it was as if he were dismantling a layer of himself, revealing a version that had often crouched in shadows. With this newfound determination, he took the leap to propose something more ambitious. What if we held a workshop not just to engage the employees, but to empower them to redefine their roles? A retreat where they could vocalize their fears and aspirations outside the rigid confines of the workplace. Samantha's face lit up, excitement shining like a beacon. "That's brilliant! We could create a safe environment where they can express themselves and begin to reshape their corporate identities. We could even invite a handful of influential figures to lead discussions alongside us, infuse it with genuine perspectives." As they prepared for the retreat, Jake's heart quickened with anticipation. There was something empowering about conceptualizing a space meant to aid others. It felt like a form of personal redemption, a way of reintegrating the lessons he learned in the workshop back into their lives. But beneath the thrill hid a constant whisper of doubt. Was this truly a step in the right direction, or was he destined to fall back into patterns of inferiority? Each interaction with Samantha rippled with a depth he hadn't anticipated. As they stood at the precipice of this new venture, Jake couldn't shake the creeping notion that their partnership was about to be tried, in ways they hadn't foreseen. Days leading up to the retreat, he couldn't escape the thought, what happens when the people they aimed to motivate push back? Was he truly prepared for confrontation? Not just from the team, but from the expectations that had shackled him for so long. Equipped with the knowledge that transformation often invites resistance, Jake stood at a crossroads, ready but uncertain. The looming event promised to be a pivotal point, but would they emerge victorious, or would the challenges ahead shatter the bonds they were forging? The day of the retreat arrived with an air of unshakable tension. Despite the vibrant sun filtering through the trees, casting playful patterns on the ground, Jake felt the weight of expectation coiling around him like an iron band. The expansive natural setting he had envisioned as liberating felt like an open stage, exposing all his vulnerabilities before the people he aimed to inspire.
As teams began to trickle in, there was buzz in the air, laughter floating lightly as employees exchanged pleasantries. Yet Jake's gaze darted over their faces, searching for signs of resistance, those hints of skepticism that could lead to confrontation. He had never led a group through the complexities of personal empowerment. He was out of his depth. The retreat was both exhilarating and terrifying, a paradox he couldn't reconcile. "Jake!" Samantha's calling voice yanked him from his spiraling thoughts. She approached with an excited bounce, twirling a clipboard. "Are you ready for this?" Her optimism seemed to challenge the worries that clouded
his mind. He forced a nod, wiping his sweaty palms against his jeans. "As ready as I can be," came his half-hearted reply. But beneath his apprehension was a flicker of something more, a growing determination fueled by his desire to connect and help others. Moments later, as the session began, Jake couldn't help but observe the subtle shifts in the room. People gathered in circles, sharing stories and laughter, but he could feel the tension simmering under the surface. For some, opening up was a foreign concept. Others were seemingly disconnected, unwilling to reveal their true selves. "Let's focus on the perfect teamwork," Samantha encouraged, leading an icebreaker. But as she spoke, Jake felt a profound sense of responsibility wash over him. Or perhaps it was fear, a fear that his contributions might not align with the lofty expectations they had set. Could he navigate this labyrinth of emotions and tensions without faltering? Between exercises, Jake found himself drawn to a smaller group that remained quiet, a few employees who clung to their chairs, skepticism written on their faces. His heart raced as he glanced at Samantha, who was animatedly discussing the morning's activities with other participants. It was now or never. This was his moment to step beyond his comfort zone. "Hey there," he approached cautiously, his voice steadying itself, wishing it would shake off the apprehensions rattling within him. "I noticed you guys aren't as engaged. What's holding you back?" The silence that followed felt heavy. A woman with crossed arms huffed, "What's the point? We've been through this before. It's just corporate fluff." He absorbed her words, echoing the doubts he felt in the depths of his own heart. He took a deep breath, fully aware that his response might either shatter barriers or deepen divisions. "I hear you," he replied, his determination hardening into resolve. "I'm not here to sugarcoat or offer some miracle cure. But what if we try to do it differently this time? What do you really want from your roles here?" To his surprise, the question hung in the air, sparking a shift. Voices emerged. Suppressed opinions found their way to the surface. They began articulating their disillusionment, longing for connection, purpose beyond their daily grind. Jake felt a flicker of empowerment igniting within him. Each vulnerability shared by the employees fueled his own. Maybe he didn't belong to the world of high-stakes corporate strategies, but he understood the machinery of people, pieces that could fit together or drift apart. As the session unfolded, something monumental began to shift. Jake's fears morphed into a dynamic interplay with budding revelation. The once silent employees began to respond, offering ideas that sparked discussions, challenging the norm, contradicting the status quo. They rallied around a shared hope, imparting energy into the room that Jake had not anticipated. Yet, as he watched their transformation take shape, a thought nagged at him, a reflection of the inner conflict he had carried from the start. How long could such momentum last? Would the tides of skepticism threaten to wash away their hard-won engagement the moment they returned to the office? The question hung unspoken, a palpable tension among the group. Jake realized this moment, a revelation blossoming into possibility, might just be the beginning of a breakthrough, not only for them, but for him as well. He stood at the edge of his own transformation, realizing that in confronting others, he was unwittingly confronting himself. As murmurs of approval rang through the room, Jake's resolve solidified. Amidst the joy of newfound connections stood the specter of doubt, lingering just beyond reach. Would he find himself unraveling under the weight of next week's inevitable return to conformity? That uncertainty loomed, a shadow over his burgeoning confidence, ready to challenge everything he had begun to build. The aftermath of the retreat unfolded like a blossoming flower. Jake felt an invigoration from witnessing a shift in the office dynamics. Employees he once perceived as disinterested engaged earnestly in discussions about their roles and aspirations. That electric atmosphere carried him through days that followed, each moment of reinforcement battling the shadows of hesitancy that still threatened to hold him back. As the week progressed, Jake found himself making regular visits to Samantha's office. Their teamwork had shifted from the realm of mere professional engagement to something resembling friendship, a bond forged through shared vulnerability and mutual respect. Each brainstorming session was met with shared optimism, yet lurking beneath his excitement was a resonant question. How sustainable was this transformation? Would it hold when faced with the realities of corporate productivity and the expectations that hung heavily in the air? One afternoon, Samantha's voice cut through his thoughts, bright and effervescent. "Jake, I think we need to take this energy and plan a follow-up workshop. We've made real progress, but the team needs continued motivation," she said, her enthusiasm infectious. Jake smiled, recognizing the glimmer in her eye, the same spark that set fire to his own ambitions. However, beneath that enthusiasm bubbled a concern. "Of course," he replied, but a note of caution crept into his voice. "But what if they fall back into old patterns? Change is hard." Samantha met his gaze firmly. "That's why we need to keep pushing them, creating incentives for engagement. Maybe we should invite someone influential to share their story, defining moments of resilience." The idea sparked Jake's creativity. He had navigated connections through his work and decided to reach out to a local entrepreneur who had made a similar leap from humble beginnings to success, a relatable figure who could resonate deeply with their team. It was a proactive step, reclaiming the narrative of their professional struggles with a tangible example of overcoming adversity. As the days leading up to the workshop unfolded, Jake felt a sense of urgency driving him forward. The opportunity to showcase this innovative approach felt monumental. Yet fear lingered close by. What if they faltered? What if the skeptical voices returned? He decided he needed to confront that uncertainty directly, both with himself and Samantha. A week later, amidst the bustling office, Jake approached Samantha. "I think we should prepare to face some resistance at the follow-up workshop," he cautioned, gauging her response with intensity. "It might be more vital than we expected to address any pushback from the team, or have dedicated discussions on how they can rethink engagement within the office structure." Samantha nodded thoughtfully. "You're right. We should build time for open dialogue. I don't want just a one-way conversation. We need to immerse them in this experience." As they prepared together, Jake's confidence slowly morphed into conviction. He understood that beyond the corporate structures, it was about cultivating a culture of honesty and engagement, accepting discomfort as part of the growth they were both seeking. He also realized that his journey was parallel to their team's struggle. They were both peeling back layers of uncertainty, hoping to create something new for themselves and their roles, disrupting the narrative of inadequacy. On the day of the workshop, a nervous energy crackled in the air. Jake stood at a makeshift podium, ready to introduce the guest speaker. "Today, we welcome not just a successful entrepreneur, but a reminder that each of us has the power to reshape our narratives. It's about overcoming the boundaries we impose on ourselves and reuniting with the passion that drives us." As the crowd dispersed into breakout sessions, something remarkable happened. People began sharing their stories of resistance, dreams undeterred by setbacks, and aspirations that seemed buried beneath the weight of expectation. Jake watched in awe as Samantha navigated the discussions, passion radiating from her, akin to a lighthouse guiding boats through a storm.
However, the moment of reflection pulled Jake deeper into his own narrative. The stories shared mirrored his struggles. His own bouts with self-doubt resonated heavily among those around him. But the collaboration, the joint effort to reclaim their identities, was contagious. During a break, he stepped outside for fresh air, only to be unexpectedly joined by a few colleagues who had participated in the previous discussions. "We really appreciate what you and Samantha have been doing," one of them said hesitantly. Jake felt a warmth spread. These small affirmations were tangible proof that they were igniting change. "Thank you," he replied, steeling himself against the nagging self-doubt that routinely came calling. "We're excited about the possibility of redefining our work culture to make it a place where we can thrive." In that moment of recognition, something shifted inside him. He was no longer just a mechanic. He was part of a vital conversation. This was his work too, and integrating these aspects of engagement felt seamlessly aligned with his vision of rebuilding, whether it was cars or careers. As the workshop closed and employees left buzzing with newfound energy, Jake couldn't shake the realization of how far they had come. There stood the undeniable connection, the opportunity to redefine what success meant for each individual, not tethered to the shackles of expectation, but grounded in authenticity.
A reflective meeting with Samantha later, amidst the aftermath, she beamed with pride. "We did this together, Jake. It actually worked." Her words resonated deeply, solidifying his own transformation. He didn't have to wear the label of just a mechanic. The layers he had peeled back allowed him to walk unencumbered by past identities. Instead, he stood as a contributor, a collaborator, forging meaningful connections in an office setting. "Thanks for believing in this process, Samantha. More than anything, I needed to believe I could break through." She placed her hand over his, the warm affirmation anchoring both their individual journeys. Jake realized at that moment that he had not only helped others discover their voices, but had ultimately discovered his own. As he stood beside Samantha, both of them gazing toward the horizon of a promising future, Jake knew his journey was just beginning. Each challenge faced was an opportunity reclaimed, both personally and professionally. The transformation required courage, persistence, and an unwavering commitment to authenticity. It was through stepping into the discomfort that he had arrived at this moment, a man not only marked by his past, but also defined by the resilience of his spirit. The mechanics of change were wholly his to navigate, and together with Samantha, he would continue to build something undeniably worthwhile. This was victory, not just for him, but for the team, echoing louder than walls adorned with accolades or any measure imposed by others. Jake was now a catalyst in the lives of those he impacted, a true success story born from darkness into light. Now, reflect on your own journey. Are you ready to step into your truth? Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. You need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait even one more second to share this. Only true fans of personal overcoming stories understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.